Welcome to the Selling in the Motor Trade podcast, in association with Simco Training. This is the weekly podcast where we share best practice, tips and ideas on how to sell more cars, improve your service department, and generally put more profit into your dealership or dealer group. I'm your host, Simon Bowkett. Now, some of you probably already know me as Skippy. I will start by saying thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. For the people who are listening to this, I just want to talk about the standards. And as you said, a blind man would know you have extremely high standards. What was the phrase you used? A blind man on a galloping horse.
A blind man on a galloping horse.
Would know the high standards. And I love this, Graeme. You are suited and booted. You're wearing an Eton shirt and an Eton tie. It looks like an Eton pin there. This is a podcast. You don't have to do this. You could have come in casual on this there, but I take it that's part of your standards. Do you do that because you know that your staff will still look up to you? Is that part you lead from the front with this?
Well, I'm from a working class background, but my father and my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, working class men as they are, when they were dressed, they were properly dressed. And it's just something, I'm perhaps a bit old-fashioned, but as it happens, I've come to this from having had an informal update lunch with 7 of our leaders in our Southwest businesses. And when I'm on Eden business, I wear Eden workwear. And you know, we I don't want to have to, well, sorry, I'm happy to talk for forever. No doubt you'll edit loads of this out. But I want our customers and prospective customers to know who's there to help them. One of the most common complaints, you touched on it earlier in our discussion, Simon, people wandering into a business and being ignored, not being welcomed, and so on and so forth. And by all Eden colleagues having some branded workwear, it indicates to customers that there's somebody there who is Eden.
Yeah.
There might be a technician, there might be a car cleaner, there might be a director, but we're all identified as there to help customers.
Yeah. There is this new trend out there, and I'm not wearing a tie at the moment there, but there are a trend with JLR businesses. And I'm sure there's been studies, and a lot of people smart than me saying a polo shirt and a dress down and it's nice and casual. But I still think if I'm going to be buying a car, maybe it might be my age, Graeme. But
well, let me tell you, in the spirit of openness, we have just changed for our sales consultants and after sales advisors to wear branded polo shirts. And that was a decision that the exec committee took on the basis of colleague feedback. So we're all still very smart,
yep.
But we have gone to polo shirts for front of house.
It's happening everywhere. I don't know if it might be my age. I don't know if I'm convinced actually, but
let's put it this way: our leaders, our managers, and upwards all still wear suits and ties.
Yeah, I bet you find yourself in a supermarket and people still come up to you and ask you in Currys, do you know where something is there? And we still get that, don't we?
Absolutely. I've so often been asked about something because you're perceived to be in management in that organisation.
It's just how you hold yourself, I think, how you walk sometimes. It comes across maybe. It might be suiting people. Can I go back slightly there? When you had the 5 dealerships, of course, you were a joint venture with Vauxhall. Now, what pressure does that create? I worked a lot with the Robinson Day business in the past, and from the outside, we think, the Peugeot guys would think Robinson Day dealers, they have it easy because they get softer targets and they're given everything. They're given the world. Reality, working with Robinson Day, or Stellantis here now, it wasn't that way at all. They were harder on them. Was the manufacturer, were they harder on you, Graeme? Because you're a joint venture with them to start with.
Yes. They were neither harder nor softer. It was the investment arm that doesn't exist any longer, but the joint investment arm was a separate part of Vauxhall. And so their investments were treated exactly as any other dealer. You mentioned were there some pressures. There were one or two. It is clear in these joint venture operations that the operator is there to run the business. And I've got to say, in that regard, they were very good partners. They never once tried to influence how the business operated. But and in my particular circumstance, because I did this in midlife, I was in a position to invest a reasonable amount of money and therefore was the majority shareholder. But in this JV situation, and I don't know other brands, but Vauxhall had a golden share. And therefore, a bit like government privatizations from years ago, they could influence certain things. So the insurance broker and company was determined by the joint venture partner. The auditor was, and there were accounting rules that you had to follow because you were part of the joint venture investment division. That apart, it was like any other Vauxhall retailer. And I've got to say, as an investor, they were extremely good partners. And the plan is, it's a little bit like private equity, or was with that model. As the company becomes profitable, the operator's share of the profit gets used to buy out the co-investor shares. And clearly, there's two ways of doing it. You can either do it as quickly as you can or drag it out and take big salaries. And I worked very, very hard to redeem the co-investor share as soon as I possibly could.
So growing with Vauxhall then, and then you start looking at the franchises. Have I got this correct in saying Mazda, Hyundai, other Stellantis, you've Peugeot as well, is that correct?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, with Peugeot as well. Yeah, it's very interesting. I didn't set out for Eden to become a big business. And to be honest, it could be a lot bigger than it is today, because offers of funding and financing and developing were there very plentifully. And I wanted Eden to be a very good business rather than necessarily a very big business. But our growth in the early stages with Vauxhall was because I think we were performing well and seen as a very good, strong partner, and we were given growth opportunities. And until very recently, we never actually went looking for a business. Either business brokers or manufacturers came to us. And I think it was 2013 when we were approached about whether we'd had interest in taking on a business in Basingstoke. That was 3 franchises at the time, as you rightly say, Mazda and Hyundai, but it also had Fiat at the time. And a little while ago, 3 or 4 years ago, squeezed for space, we had to sacrifice the Fiat franchise. But that introduced us to non-Vauxhall business. And the story, I'm delighted to say, was very, very similar. We turned the businesses round, and with both manufacturers, we've grown quite considerably, I think, as a result.
So this podcast is all about getting to know you and tips and ideas how to sell more cars, make more money. But I want to go off topic a bit on that. And there's a lot more Chinese brands coming in. And I think, how does someone like you, an investor, pick the right horse, so to speak? Someone told me there's going to be, 96 different brands represented in 2030. If we just go back 5 years ago, I think there was something like 64. How do you throw a dart at the dartboard and find out? No, BYD, I think, has established up. They're going to be there, JQ Moto. But what about some of these other brands coming through? What do you do as an investor looking at these?
Yeah.
Is that a big question? Is that a...
It's a very good question, as politicians would say. I'm very happy to answer it. But I just need to sort of say something personally. I am feel a little compromised over the whole Chinese brand situation, because our political stance as a UK is perhaps giving them more of a chance in the UK than in some other markets. And I'm not sure for the longer term that's right for the UK economy. That having been said, as an owner retailer in motors, then we clearly have to reflect the marketplace and in particular deliver to the customers what the customers are looking for. So we started some 6 years ago with the MG franchise, which of course is Chinese owned, and the cars are at the moment exclusively assembled in China, but it's a heritage English brand.
Yep.
And we've only got 2 of those operations. We'd like to grow, but we've gone extremely well. And we are now active with another Chinese brand, which is Leap Motor, which is a JV with Stellantis and Leap International. And so, you know, not denying the fact, we've now got 6 operations where we're selling Chinese manufactured cars. In terms of which ones to choose, for me so far, it's been relatively easy. MG was because MG is a British brand with Chinese produced products. It's a bit like offshore production. And given the opportunity, I thought that made absolute sense. I try to take business decisions based on business grounds, but I love MGs, and I happen to own the one true car I own is a 1947 MGTC. So I've got a little bit of a love affair with older MGs. And the Leap decision, again, was made quite easy because being a strong and scaled partner with Stellantis through the Vauxhall and Peugeot brands, when the offer of a brand that is, it is Chinese, but is a contemporary, very high-tech range of cars that frankly is very affordable, then, and there are no franchising considerations, putting it alongside other Stellantis brands, made that a relatively easy decision. And we are having discussions with other brands. We haven't firmed anything up yet. But yeah, we are selling Chinese cars, but it is roughly 15% of our business.
Right, there's going to be winners and losers, and this might not be the time for this conversation, but I'm just fascinated about what you said, Graeme. I think you're right, that are we seen as a dumping ground in the UK because we don't have the tariffs the rest of Europe do? Dumping ground, I don't know if that's too strong of a word.
Well, it is. Sorry, Simon.
No, please.
Yeah, I don't, you know, dumping has an economic definition, and I don't think it's dumping. But what I think is not beneficial in the longer term is that we have got an earlier timeline expectation of no ICE power trains, and governmental targets for BEV, battery electric vehicle penetration, that is much more aggressive than the rest of Europe. Consequently, manufacturers are needing to sell BEVs. And so adjunct franchises like Leap going alongside Vauxhall, Peugeot, etc., is clearly going to help. And we're seen as a market that is not just open to BEVs, but actually pushing BEVs. Now, in contradistinction, I am an advisor to a business in France that I've been involved with for many, many years. And they have got a very, very benign situation where the French government is managing the environmental concern around BEVs, ICE, through fiscal policy. And this business that I'm involved with has no specific BEV targets at all in terms of percentage of registrations. And therefore, they're operating in a much more benign environment. And the Chinese manufacturers, I don't think, are seeing it as such as a sort of pleasant and easier place to market.
No, I agree. I think you agree 100% what you said. It was becoming political, and again, this might not be the podcast for that, but it just fascinated me to get your views on that. It's I think you've hit the nail on the head for me on that. It's not level there at all. So let's make it a bit lighter now then. So when you're away from work, other than your classic 1947 MGT, if I got that right, what helps you switch off? I read somewhere that you love traveling but hate boats because you get seasick. What do you do? What's a good break look like for you then? Is that right about the seasick?
Yes. Well, we I'm not against holidays at all, and I'm not a workaholic. Let me just say, I love what I do, but a workaholic can't do anything else. For us, because the last 2 or 3 years have been quite challenging, and you know, I've not been away from the business a huge amount. We're also blessed to have 6 grandchildren between us, so family and seeing grandchildren is clearly very important. But an ideal break for Nikki and myself is to go to a country house hotel that's got a spa, good food, a little bit of fresh air, not too much, a little bit of fresh air, and the opportunity to read and relax. I love to read. I love to visit new places. So nothing, and I love sport. If you could see the whole of me, I'm certainly not built for sport,
Okay.
but I do enjoy sport. I love watching football and cricket, rugby to an extent. Very, very ordinary things. I'm blessed to still have mother alive, so going to see her as often as I can still. So family orientated and relaxation in the classic fresh air, good food, read a good book, wonderful.
Well, just for that, you're not a workaholic. It brings you on to my next question then. This is what, 40 odd years in the sector. You clearly still have the enthusiasm for it. It's just coming out in droves. Anyone who spoke to you or listened to you speak at the conference there, it is addictive. I'm going to say this. What still gives you the buzz about the business? What still gets you up in the morning? Because you've built a lot there. What is it that still gives you that buzz every day?
Well, I think I would answer there are 3 things. One is I'm very fortunate that I don't really consider my life to have been a working life, because it's just a kind of almost mission to be the person I am in the world that I happen to have ended up in. And the numbers, the hearing and seeing sales results. I mean, this morning, I've been, for that meeting that I went to, I've been in one of our businesses, and I started the meeting 10 minutes late because I like to speak to every customer who's in the business at that time, just to say hello. Are they being looked after? Have they been offered a cup of tea? I have a one-liner. We give you free tea and coffee. We've got to charge for the cars.
Yeah.
And
I bet you learn
I
so
find
much
that-
doing that. I bet you just get so much information from customers doing that.
I do. You know, one of the customers who was extremely polite had noticed he was a while you wait service customer. His car hadn't moved out of the car park and he'd been there 10 minutes. Now, you know, it's not the end of the world,
Yep.
but he told me he just noticed his car hadn't moved and he was a while you wait appointment. So
Yep. You get it from
obviously I mentioned
putting yourself in the customer's shoes. It's
absolutely.
Yep.
10 minutes is a long time when you don't want to be there.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
Although this gentleman was reading his book and having a cup of tea, so it wasn't a disaster. So the first thing is I just love people. I really do. And so meeting my colleagues, meeting the many stakeholders and customers is fantastic. The other thing is, you can see I'm a grey-haired older man. I absolutely love passing on experience and mentoring and coaching people. I really love it. Some of it's formal. A lot of it is very informal. And it's a bit like, I've never been a coach in a sport, but I'm sure coaches get a lot of vicarious pleasure from their trainees doing well. And I just love seeing people develop and mature and do a good job. The third thing. Sorry, Simon.
Just for the listeners, before we hit record, I asked all the guests coming on, what do you want to achieve in the podcast? What is there anything you want? And some people say we want to find more businesses. We're looking for staff. We want to promote our. And Graeme, I hope you don't mind me saying this. So I just want to give back, and I just this is not something just for the recording. This is before we hit record. It was like I just really like giving back. So it's I just love that.
Yeah, I mean, I that's true. And the industry has been very, very good to me, and I've been blessed with a wonderful career. But it's not entirely altruistic. My life is the easier, whether I'm a non-executive in another company or in my own business, if the people who I'm working with are better trained, more mature, better, more commercial, etc., etc., makes my life easier. I've always believed that the better your team is, the easier your life is as the boss.
So true. So true. I'm sorry, I cut you off before. You were talking before at point 3, but
Well, no, the third thing is, and this is where I am a bit masochistic, I've got a wide variety of things. Eden is the primary focus, and I am the full-time CEO of Eden. But I also do a number of advisory jobs. And so, today, for example, I'll be touching stuff to do with 3 of the organizations that I'm involved with. And that variety keeps me very, very fresh. Very fresh. And it means I've got to be highly organized.
Is this
and I'm not natural. Sorry.
Is this Ben and IMI and your roles with the?
Yeah. Ben and IMI, and I give some advice to an American investment bank, and I do board advice for a business in France, yes, and I'm on the board of Premier Christian Communications, which is a radio and broadcasting, or London-based broadcasting organisation.
That just leaves me to say that all details of this episode and other episodes on the selling in the motor trade can be found on our website, simcotraining.co.uk. Go there to get a copy of our book, Words That Sell Cars. Go there to sign up to a free trial of our Sales Fitness online sales training program. Easiest way to get hold of me is Simon Bowkett through LinkedIn. Thank you.